just in case you missed it. It's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
You a big Harry Potter guy?
I do enjoy it. I remember we had the conversation of what house you would be in.
That's we did have that conversation. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire opened in theaters 20 years ago today, November 18. 20 years ago today.
It's one of my favorites.
I'm with you.
If not my
too.
favorite.
I never thought, I was never, Dragons guy. I was like, oh, come on, no, I don't. But and a lot of it has to do with the kid, obviously, but I could watch those films over and over again, endlessly, almost on a loop. Sometimes I end up doing exactly that.
Usually it's around this time of year.
So now, that's
fall,
true.
Christmassy time.
That's true. Yeah. And then they're also, I think it's going to start, is it in the spring or what? There's a new version where they're doing a series. Like, I don't know if it's Netflix, Apple, or who it is.
HBO.
Is it HBO?
Yeah.
Okay. When's that supposed to drop? Do we know?
Not sure, but we have castings. You can go in and see who's Harry and it's
going to be it's going to be tough to match what they did, but I understand why they would want to try. What do we got?
Time now for the obligatory Kevin Fallness Minnesota Wild mention.
The Wild are on a roll.
Circle Zuccarello carries in back to Boldy. A drive tipped wide by Eriksson Ek in front. 15 seconds to go in overtime. Zuccarello up top. Boldy one touch back. Zuccarello cross ice pass. Kaprizov scores! Carrillo! Kaprizov stuck in 5-hole, and the Wild win it 3-2 in overtime.
They're definitely on a roll. It's the thing I warned you about, though, when you get behind in this league, plenty of hockey left to play. We're not even to the new year mark, but it's hard to climb in this league just by the nature of the points, so the Wild have to keep it up. Some line news. My guy, Danila Yurov, is going to get his big shot tomorrow.
You're excited about
on the
that?
top line. I'm fired up about it. He gets to center.
Are they going to give him more than 5 minutes?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say.
If he struggles early?
I really, really, really don't want this to be you give him 2 shifts. Well, they didn't produce.
Yep.
So, Ryan Hartman, welcome back aboard. I would like to see this whole game go through and see what happens. And I would like multiple games. But Yurov centers Kaprizov, Zuccarello. That starts later on.
We'll talk to Louis in more detail about it. That shot, to me, one of the most dangerous things about Kaprizov is I feel like he's already in the act of shooting at just as the puck arrives. That's how fast then it's off of his stick and into the net. I think that's one of his underrated skills is the quickness with which he gets the shot off, and they take care of business. Now, did the opponent get jobbed on the call that gave us the extra skater in OT? What do you think? What do you make of that?
Was it ticky-tacky? Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
But they were calling it that way all game. And there were plenty
they were
of
consistent, you're saying.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
all right.
But it was, I would have been upset if I were them. Wolves, they're had a very impressive win against, the Mavericks, 96-120. They get the Wizards tomorrow at Target Center. Your thoughts?
Jaden McDaniels now listed as questionable for tomorrow's game with a wrist. Don't know much about that. Don't even remember any particular play in the game. As we talked about earlier, they are in a good mode of taking out the teams they're supposed to take out. The Mavericks are a mess. They've got about 8 people out hurt. Their offense is a disaster, and right now, and Minnesota took full advantage of it from almost the beginning of the game. I think the Wolves are sitting at 9-5 at this point. But again, you're going to have to start occasionally, beating better teams. Now, the next game, that was the first game back when Edwards was just coming back from injury. Maybe that's part of the story. By the way, Tom Crean is scheduled to join us tomorrow at 3:15. He's just been in town for some games. I think now he's back at home in Florida, but he's going to give us some of his wit and wisdom at 3:15 tomorrow. But they're offensively, they look very good, and they're again, historically, this team has tended to let inferior teams hang. I don't even know if it would have been impossible to let Dallas hang. They're such a mess right now with so many people out hurt. But they're putting teams out of their misery more quickly. That's the first step in wherever they intend to go. And I know they obviously intend to try to go to someplace far away past the conference finals.
You mentioned McDaniels questionable with a left wrist sprain. Available, Dante DiVincenzo, face mask he will probably be wearing, but at least he's playing.
Yes.
Out Freeman, Shannon Jr., and I'm going to go with Zakarski.
Close enough.
That's good enough for me. We'll go. Did you watch Monday Night Football? And if you did, I'm sorry.
I didn't watch a lot of it, man. I didn't. And I'm one of those guys who loved Pete Carroll being back in the league, but maybe the Raiders are beyond even his coaching expertise at this point, because they're just, I don't know what Tom Brady's going to do, but it looks like they're going to have to do something fairly drastic. And who's the veteran quarterback starter for them?
Geno?
Yeah, Geno.
Yeah.
I know people kind of celebrated his resurrection a year ago, but he looks pretty done to me. They just look like they need so much help at so many places. And, Dallas offensively actually looks quite good. Whether they're capable, again, same thing, of beating better teams, I don't know. But it was a very blah game for a Monday nighter, for sure.
Yeah. It feels like football is the hardest to get out of the basement. It just takes takes a lot of players.
There's no question. Yeah.
An interesting note out of Monday Night Football, though, is that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens were kept on the bench for the first series of Monday Night's, their 33-16 win.
Yes.
Apparently, this is a quote from Schottenheimer, there were some things that were missed, so had a conversation with those guys, and that was easy. Oh boy, big slap on the wrist. Things were missed, so they get to sit out one series.
Do you think it's quite a powerful punishment?
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, really laying the hammer down.
Yeah, I guess that does fall into the classification of why even bother. Who just got suspended for a game for spitting on an opponent?
That's Jamar Chase.
Yeah, game, right? And I think it's basically, essentially, it's a $500,000 loss to him. That's the second spitting incident we've had. What's going on with the spitting? Is that making a comeback, or are we just noticing it more because of the video? I don't have any idea. It's very odd.
There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't understand. Chase is appealing the suspension. Someone told Shefty the appeal will be heard and ruled by
what do you appeal? Isn't he shown spitting, or am I wrong?
And he said post game he didn't spit, but then the footage clearly shows him spit. So that's a. I think most of us will agree that's a bridge too far. However you feel like you're being transgressed. It is worth noting, and maybe we'll do this at 5:15, because Louis, I don't think so. 5:30. We haven't talked about the latest Draymond Green incident with a fan. That is rather curious. Not surprising in his case, but rather curious. So maybe we will indeed save that. I guess I'm doing my best four-letter network impersonation, because I've talked about the Cowboys, and now we go here. LeBron is reportedly aiming to return tonight against the Jazz, according to Shams. Does this move the meter for you at all, that LeBron is finally back in
Well, I think, it's good to have him back. I mean, the Lakers have actually played well. They've got a decent record without him. But, I mean, he can, as far as we know, he can still play, right? So, yeah, I think it's I'm curious to see. I don't view the Lakers as a contender by any means, but, and we all assume this is going to be his last year. But, yeah, I mean, he's missed. How long has the season been going on? Close to a month, right? Now, on the other hand, you say, when you're that age, I think a certain measure of load management is understandable. I'm less offended by load management when it's somebody who's in his 40s and has put in a lot of mileage and a lot of time than it is when it's, somebody 27 years old or 30 years old or whatever the case may be.
One more quickie. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is going to miss surgery. So now it's kind of, Tomlin didn't rule out Aaron Rodgers for the game against the Bears. The status will be determined later this week. So he avoids injury and avoids surgery to that left wrist.
Hey, Raj, did you say they're playing the Bears this week?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And where is that game? Do we know?
Good question. I don't know.
The Bears are about to embark upon a much tougher part of their schedule. Okay. They got a lot of division games coming. I think they got the Lions and so forth. I still can't imagine that at any point this season they'd be in first place, which is what they are for the moment after the Lions' disappointing performance over the weekend. So, A-Raj, how do we evaluate how he's played this year? Not great. I think serviceably, though. They've handled him right where they're not asking him to do too much. They're not asking him to, and he's doing a lot of short passes. If you like short passes, A-Rod is pretty much your guy. So that's okay for me.
There you have it.
There it is. No bonus bucks, I don't believe, this week. We'll get to that Draymond story and a couple of other texts in just a matter of minutes, and then Luigi, as I said, at 5:30.
Wow. The Fan welcomes Trans-Siberian Orchestra for 2 amazing shows at Target Center, December 28th, 3 and 7:30 p.m. Tickets on sale now. Get complete show details, including a link to buy tickets, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
We've talked over the years about fan deportment and what is the line when it comes to heckling of players or coaches, but usually players. And there's, I think, I'd like to think there's a consensus on this that if you get into language and if you get into race, if you're misogynistic, the whole bit, there's not a lot of negotiation that needs to go on. The team, or I guess security, can boot that individual pretty simply and pretty easily. And that up to that point, you pay your ticket and you can get, pretty harsh from time to time. And the story, I guess the debate has come up again because of the news surrounding a confrontation between Draymond Green and a fan. This was in New Orleans. The Warriors were playing the Pelicans, who are a mess, by the way. And what's interesting is that in this case, well, let me back up and give you a little more detail if you're not all that familiar with the story. I think this was Sunday. So the fan, who was, I believe, seated, is it baseline? It's definitely front row. Was chanting at Draymond Angel Reese, kept invoking the name of Angel Reese, the WNBA player. And at one point, Draymond then walks up over to him and kind of gets in his face. Now, there was nothing physical between the two. They both handled that part of it well. There was a security person over there. And I don't believe the fan was thrown out. And Draymond kind of misled a little bit the confrontation, because when he talked about it after the game, all he said was, he just kept calling me a woman. It was a good joke at first, but you can't keep calling me a woman. Well, what he conveniently left out was that this fan was referring to a specific woman in this case, as we said, Angel Reese. And the bit was, you can decide for yourself whether this is clever or whether this is worth the trouble or how far do you go with it. Green had missed 5 straight shots, and he'd rebounded the first 4 of those misses. So, kind of the joke among, Angel WNBA fans and Angel Reese is, can't shoot, but really good about grabbing her own rebounds, right? That's the bit, for whatever it's worth. And ultimately, the NBA has apparently warned Draymond Green, although they haven't fined him. So what the warning entailed, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if there's even any details that are being offered. But the stories I'm looking at just notes that the NBA has warned Green. Presumably, it would be you should not confront if indeed that was the exchange. And I tend to agree. Now, part of this is it's Draymond. So because it's Draymond Green, it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt because of how often he goes off to the extent that he does. And for that reason, it's like I said, you just sort of shake your head and you go, Draymond, okay, here we go again. And because Draymond has these illusions that he's perfectly capable of handling himself and he's not frustrated, when a lot of the things he's done has been related to frustrations on the court, things not going his way on the court, etc. After the game, Green commended the referee, Courtney Kirkland, for handling the interaction. I got it. I've heard him over and over again. You handled it well. Don't get yourself in trouble. No trouble. I'll take care of it. That's what Draymond claimed that Kirkland told him. Now, again, I don't know what Kirkland said to the fan. The fan's name is Sam Green, a Pelicans fan. And he's quoted in an Associated Press piece about, when he went with the chant that he did and the sequencing of it as well. But I don't believe he was thrown out of the game. I don't think he should have been thrown out of the game. Would I have done it? Probably not. But I don't think this is, we got to be careful, because I think what's happened is the trend has been, you quote players and you say, well, there's only so far, the players should not have to stand for certain things. And so the benefit of the doubt has tended to go towards the player. I get that to a degree, but I think each case has to be examined individually, and I don't think that means automatically we have to assume that the fan, stepped over the line. And in this case, I'm not sure that fan did. The dangerous thing, obviously, is because of the proximity of the court, it's the way basketball is set up, you're worried, you have the concern, the obvious concern about it escalating. About, well, what if the fan is not as cool as this guy was and decides to shove Draymond? And that's, I'm sure, largely why the NBA says you can't be going over there, especially when, in this case, there doesn't seem to be any indication that there were any racist taunts involved or anything like that. We can talk about whether it's sexist to name a female athlete. In this case, it was about what her game represents that he's playing off of. It's as simple as that. But, Draymond has a way, despite his history, of making these stories about him trying to stand tall and him actually being more mature and trying to, reason through these things. We have pretty good experience here knowing that there are times where reason has nothing to do, as good a basketball player as Draymond Green is, with his approach. With the way he goes about his business. So I'm actually encouraged at the NBA. Now, I don't know if a fine was necessary, and in this case, they didn't fine the player. And I'd be curious to know exactly what the warning was. But I'm glad that I don't think in this case the player or the fan has lost his seats or it rises to that level. Often it does, and then it should be easy. You're done. You're banned from this arena. You're banned for a year, whatever the case may be. But in this case, I just don't think there's anything here that is worthy of the danger the dangerous door that's opened when a player then decides to get in the face of that individual. Westbrook's done this a few times too, and it's become too easy to put all of it, I think, on the fan. Again, depending on exactly what the fan said. This, to me, I think the league sent a good message here where they're not taking it out on the fan. They're not suggesting that the fan really did anything, or at least they're saying no matter what line he came up to, if you get in his face, we can't allow it because that is asking for difficulty and the possibility of escalation. And that's what obviously you're trying to avoid. And of all people to seem or sound wronged, it's admittedly, I think, should be tougher to stomach it when it comes from Draymond Green. We've laid out the litany of stories in his case, the degree to which his head coach has had to hold his nose because Green's a very good player. But the fact is his history as in terms of not controlling his emotions, as I think kind of pretty much speaks for itself. If you have questions for Louie, if you have questions for Luigi, perfect time to hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. That number is 64686. Are you trying to, are you getting into this club? Are you starting to believe that maybe we've figured some stuff out and we might well be on our way to a, pretty successful regular season after a very slow start? You may have questions at the college level. You may have questions at the high school level. You may have travel questions. Luigi's very good at that because no one travels the globe quite like Luigi. So all of those on the table. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. That is 64686. 64686. Louie is coming up next here in the Fan.
Well, Well, she sneaks around the world from here to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
New Nanny?
Brought to you by Kemp's, as always. And man, the questions and observations are coming in fast and furious for Luigi, who joins us now via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. You are back from Oahu, is that correct? Back in Florida?
That's right.
Yep.
3 days was too short.
Yeah, that is too short. That's a quick turn back and forth. But the beauty of it is there'll always be another Hawaii trip for you, so you don't have to be necessarily all of that disappointed. No problems at the airport with the infrastructure. Everything worked for you. There were no nightmare stories as we get the airlines back at full speed.
Well, just like the airlines were saying, any flights out of the country or out of the domestic U.S., we're going to have any problems. It was the regional stuff that had a lot of problems. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't regional, so we had no problems.
That's good. All right, let's get this out of the way, because among the questions that have come in, there's this one. This one definitely got my attention from the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Louis, what are Louis' thoughts on J.J. McCarthy? Everybody is talking about the J.J. McCarthy story, Luigi. What would you like to add to the equation?
Well, everybody gets frustrated, when you lose, and I can understand why. And you see flashes of really high talent, and then you see mistakes, and you're hopeful that the mistakes are just mistakes of youth and rookies. Only had 5 games, and you have to say that. What worries me is more than the mistakes is the feel for the game.
Yeah,
and I say that because the one thing about great quarterbacks, they know how to, when they have to pass the ball, the football hard, or
different
when they
speeds,
loft it, or, different speeds, and I haven't seen him do that. That's the one thing that I get surprised about, because he can really fire it, and sometimes guy's only 15 yards away from him and he puts it right through his hands. But it's the feel that bothers me more than anything else, because he does have, no doubt, he's got great arm strength, and he can really throw a ball, and he can run with the ball. It's always the feel for the game, like when should I run or not run? When should I throw a soft pass or not soft pass? And you want to attribute that to being a rookie, but it's still, when you have a feel for the game, even as a rookie, sometimes some of those mistakes don't show up. Yeah, no, we were talking much earlier in the show, right off the top of the program. A good example of exactly what you're talking about was same scenario, 25 years ago now, second-year quarterback who did not play in his first year after being drafted high by the Vikings, Dante Culpepper. From the beginning, he showed that feel. Now, he wasn't perfect. He threw some, 16 interceptions his first season, but he also threw 32 touchdowns, ran very well, and had a great feel. We were talking about that with Chris Carter yesterday. And I think you raise an important point, because feel, one thing is, fundamentals and footwork, and those things can be worked on and improved. But feel is one of those deals where you either got it or you don't, to a certain extent, I think. And that is why I think you raise a fair point, that's the bigger thing to watch, the bigger concern, because feel is more than just mechanics. It is, and the great players have that in all sports. Yep. You can call it feel. Sometimes it's just a perception. It's the anticipation, but it's just an awareness in the game of how you should be playing the game. And there's a lot of things that go into that feel, but those are probably the most important things, because that gives you. That gives you extra time to do what you want to do. When you understand the game really well, you don't feel as rushed. The great players never feel as rushed as an ordinary player. And that's part of the feel for the game. And that's what I'm getting to about McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And that's what you'd like to see. If you see the feel there, and you're still going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but you're going to be able to learn from those mistakes, make them less. But you have a better chance of that coming quickly when you got a better feel for the game.
All right, let's talk about your favorite hockey team, the Wild. Are we starting is this club starting to figure it out, do you think?
Well, they're figuring out the way they're playing. Unfortunately, they now run into another rash of injuries, and that's it's got to worry. And you start getting 4 guys out of the lineup. It's not that the lineup's so deep that they can afford those kind of losses. Fortunately, Wallsted's been leading the way, and then Gus came back with another good game, and so they're not giving up more than 2 goals, and that's giving a chance to win all the time. It is difficult to get to 3 goals for them, but they have been able to do that. And you see going 6-1-1, and the good thing about it, when you start winning like that, you start feeling you're going to win, and you're playing with much more confidence, and you're playing much more freely, and that's what they're doing. It's going to be interesting to see it works out this way, because both Rossi and Hartman being out, it looks like Europe might get a chance to go in that first line. And I know it's going to be different for him, but I like that. I like the fact that he's getting a chance to play with 2 very clever players, because I like Europe. Maybe I like Europe more than they liked him, because I didn't even want him to sit out the couple games that they sat him out. I think that he's finding his way, but he's finding his way quick enough where he looks like he's always involved on the ice. He works hard. He works deep when he's playing center. He helps us down low, which I like a lot. And he's got a couple goals, and he's scrappy around the net. He's not afraid to get in front of the net and fight for pucks. I like a lot of things about him. I think that he's just got to play more, and when he plays with better players like this, I'm going to be interested to see if he can produce even more. Although, you got to be happy with what he's done this far.
I got him with 13 in terms of goals given up, 13 in the last 8 games. And to me, that it starts there, because as we talked early in the season, they were routinely giving up 4, 5, 6 goals a game early. And, it's true of any team, but certainly I think this team that's not, blessed with 4 lines of great offensive talent, the basics you got to take care of. And that is, you got to be a combination of good defensively in front of the net, and with the goaltender as well. And that's where this thing starts, to me, is they're just simply not giving up the number of goals that they were earlier in the season.
That's so true, and that's the reason why they're winning. It was scary early on. You're right. I think they had about a 4 or 5 game stretch where they averaged about 5 goals against. And you're not going to beat anybody playing like that. And to say, okay, that's not them, but it's a long way down from 5-2 that you have to cut 3 goals off a game, and they've been able to do that, which really gives you a good feeling about the way they're playing right now. They were actually, it was scary the way they were playing that in that stretch, because even though you start seeing it's early in the season, you're losing 2 points, and all of a sudden 5 games, that's 10 points.
Yeah.
And teams don't make up 10 points that easily, and so they were putting themselves in a bad position, and they snapped out of it and left. They're 6-1-1 in the last 8 games. That's really good. And now, the one thing about it, it's making them feel better about themselves. They're feeling more confident. Unfortunately for them, they get a real good Carolina team to come in and play against them when they're going to be maybe 4 men out of the lineup, because Carolina is a real well-coached team. They're a fast team. They're not overly physical. That's a good part about it. But they do check well, even though they're not physical. They use their bodies well, and they can score goals. And they got 2 great players. Always a terrific player there. Jarvis has been a good scorer. Jordan Stahl's always been a great checker. Their defense is mobile, big, and they move the puck. So right now, whether they like it or not, I think their weakness is still in goal. I haven't seen their goaltending really be the reason why they win games this year. And so I think that the Wild got a chance to get opportunities and get in front of the net and fight for pucks and get some rebounds or screens there.
952 guy texted this much earlier in the show. He writes, iHeartRadio is coming in loud and clear from the beach in Maui. Ask Louis who should be our number 1 goaltender.
Well, we're not that far in the season where you go number 1.
Yes.
The number 1 guy's got to be the guy that's playing the best. Right now it's Wallstedt. And I think that no matter who's number one, you don't want to get the number two guy out for 6, 7, 8 games. You want to get him in there at least every 5th game, but I'd say preferably every 3rd or 4th game, and just to keep them sharp in case the number one goes flat on you. But right now, if you're going to go for say a 3-game run, you got to bet on Wallstead right now, because he's been able to do that now. If during that 3-game run he's not doing it, then you make the change. But he's a guy you could lean on.
To a certain extent, you perhaps have already answered this question, but I'll throw it out there anyway. This is from Steve in South St. Paul. Big fan. Can you talk some sense into who makes the choice about Urov getting more ice time? They need to give that guy more time, which I know that's preaching to your choir.
I'm just surprised that they don't. He's shown enough flashes where you got to start giving, like the horse used to, got to give him his reins, let him go, let him run. And I know when I was doing the 4 games there, and I'm not going to say who I talked to, but one of the assistants I'm talking, and the guy said, well, you made a mistake here. I said, everybody makes mistakes, but just because they're young doesn't mean you keep them out of the lineup. That guy's got a way to grow. He can grow. And that's what I think you have to. They're on a fine line now, and I could understand why they were doing that before. They were really up against it when they were losing. They were in a very good position. And then you're going to bet on veterans unless they're really playing really poorly, because you think that they're prone to less mistakes. They know what you're doing. But I think now, I really believe right now they feel really confident in him. That's why they moved him up to the first line. He's earned his way there, and that's the best part about it. They're not giving him anything. This kid's earned his way there. He's earned a chance to play different positions. And you got to start getting some younger guys in the lineup. Boy, I got a cold here.
Yeah, I can feel it.
You got to start getting some younger guys, playing time, because the Wild now, their forwards are older. For the most part, they get older guys, and you got to start breaking people in to get some ice time. Who's going to be there if they're not ready right now when somebody goes down? So you got to have somebody always on the cusp that not only could play, but could play and produce.
Can you ask Louis if he's ever been to Oslo, Norway? And if so, is there a restaurant that is can't miss that I should go to? I'm going, he writes. This is texter, let's see. This is Tom. He says he's going in mid-January.
Yeah, I've been there, and I was on a cruise. I ate in a restaurant, so I don't remember the name of it. It was on the 2nd floor. It was really good, but most of the meals I had on that, I took one of those cruises up above the Arctic Circle, and it was beautiful. It was a great time, and Norway's a beautiful area, and especially all those fjords when you go through them. But one time in the restaurant up there, it was good enough, but not good enough that I got to remember, because I wasn't going back anyway.
Question, college hockey related. I took my son, writes 612 guy, to his first Gopher hockey game Saturday night. Great game. He enjoyed it. But I spent much of the time explaining how cool it used to be when the house was packed full of Gopher fans. Saturday was only about half full. So disappointing. Is it still the Big Ten, or what needs to happen to bring back the old crowds in that building? It's a subject we've explored before. I thought it was getting better, and I don't know if there was something specific about that night. But can you speak to that issue, which comes up every once in a while?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things there. First of all, the crowds were back. They were back in full when the Gophers were making runs to the Frozen Four, and definitely, I was in the 16 playoff group. They were packed. They were full, and then this year they got off to a slow start. Now you get off to a slow start, and they had 11 guys to replace, and that takes a real toll on you. On top of that, The opponent was LIU, Long Island University,
Yes.
which I got to tell you, I hadn't even heard of until I saw them earlier in the year playing against Boston College. I mean, I saw the scores. I didn't watch them play, and I saw them a couple weekends play teams like Boston College. One was Boston College. Can't recall the other one. And I'm saying, who is this? I never heard of him before. So all of a sudden he got a team. I didn't even realize they were on our schedule. So I can understand, when coming to Minnesota to play Minnesota, people think like I thought. And in fact, that night I went up for dinner. I didn't even watch the game, and my wife says, "Well, what are they playing?" I said, "Oh, they're playing the Little Sisters of the Poor." Well, they weren't Little Sisters of the Poor because they ended up winning 6-2.
Yeah.
The Gophers beat them the next night 6-3. I didn't know anything about their team, and apparently, they got themselves a number of good players because of all the influx of players. Now there were more players around since they were able to get a lot of juniors come into the U.S. as well from Canada. But if the Gophers start winning, start in a streak, and start to win, the Cards will be back there.
Louis, what is your opinion of the Gophers going back to an all-Minnesota roster? Maybe we could get more NIL for the program. We're not going back to that, are we, Luigi? I thought we were way past that nonsense. Oh, my God.
I'm no different with the hockey team than I am with the football team,
Yes.
the basketball team, the volleyball team. Give me the best players. I don't care where they're from.
Yes.
They can be from Hong Kong.
I'm with
That's
you.
fine. Put them in a lineup. I want my teams to win, and whatever it takes to win, I want them to do that. And unfortunately, right now, people don't understand. You can't win with all Minnesota players because you're not going to get all the good Minnesota players. If you're getting all the good Minnesota players, you could be very competitive. But you're going to have kids go to Wisconsin, Boston College, Mankato, Duluth, North Dakota, etc. It just is. There is no way for you to get all the Minnesota players because kids have different choices. Plus, some of them it's romantic to go out of state.
Of course.
Different parts of the country. I can understand that. I mean, I came from Sault Ste. Marie. I didn't even know where Minnesota was, so that's not going to happen. So you got to go and get the best wherever you can get the best and win.
100%. Well, maybe you can remind people. Is that yours or mine? Oh, that's yours.
That's mine. My wife finished golf. She's calling me. She's on the way home.
So I reckon. I think that's one of my ringtones too. That's why I was confused for a moment. Remind people the whole, Minnesota kids only. That goes back to Mariucci, right? There was a specific reason, there was a time where that was big to him. Correct?
Well, let me tell you, it doesn't go back to Mariucci. And I can tell you this is better than everybody because John told me his philosophy when I came down here. Mariucci says, Lou, I played with the Chicago Blackhawks. I was the only American on the team after Brimsick left. He says, and I have nothing against Canadians. I love the Canadians. I played with them. He says, the thing that I want, he says, we don't play Denver in our league because Denver gets all the overage juniors that come.
Okay.
And those kids are finished junior.
Right.
When I was playing with the Gophers, I was playing against guys 25 years old. And John says, I just want the American boy, and especially the Minnesota boy, to have equal opportunity to play against anybody. So I will take, I took you down as an 18-year-old because that's what my kids are coming from Minnesota, 18 years old. And if the other teams in the league, like Denver, if they would just take down 18-year-old Canadians, 18, 19-year-old Canadians, I'd be all right with it. And that's why, he says he had Mike Pearson, he had Murray Williamson, he had Jerry Melnichuk. They were all from Thunder Bay and Fort Francis, etc. So he took other Canadians before me too. Actually, it started to come all Minnesota with Woog.
Yeah, Woog definitely was big on
he was big, but I
sustaining it.
And Woog was a very good friend of mine.
Yep.
And God rest his soul, he passed away. But I told Dougie, I said, Dougie, I got a theory, and I hope I'm wrong, that you don't want Canadians or anything else here, because if you lose, you got an excuse. And I told him that. So I can tell you honestly, and I mean, Doug's a good friend of mine, but I said, that's, to me, that's not a very good way to operate a hockey team. You got to play to win.
Yep.
And you play all Minnesotans, because then you say, oh yeah, but they got these guys from every other place. I said, I want to see you win. So don't use excuses. And that's where it started, to go like that.
He definitely made it part of his philosophy. And, you mentioned it earlier. I'll turn it the other way. Like the idea of, for some kids, it's the romantic notion of playing somewhere out of state. It comes back this way, too. The idea that there might be some kid in Massachusetts who, for whatever reason, falls in love with the Gopher hockey history, to deprive him of a chance to be part of it. That's a romance denied, too. That's the way I always looked at it, that there had to be, especially, in the Gopher men's hockey heyday, I have to believe there were kids from all over the country in hockey background and said, man, I love that history. I want to go there. I want to be a part of that tradition. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. There were kids from Boston that would have come here if you'd ever gone and recruit them, or Michigan. It's just like, why football players go to certain states and go play on their team, and then he didn't win, and afterwards the thing was Herbie won with all Minnesotans, but at the same time Herbie was talking to me, who can you get me a good guy? Can you get me a good Canadian? I took Doug Riseborough down. I recruited him when he was a junior then. Herb flew him out. I was playing in the playoffs for the North Stars, and we were staying at the Holiday Inn, and Herbie calls me, he says, I'm coming over. I got Riseborough came to town. We're going to try and sign him. So I remember talking to Doug Riseborough, who was a junior at the time. I said, Doug, you're a Canadian like I was a Canadian. It's a great opportunity. And I said, unless you're drafted high in the first round, I said, you got to come here. You'll get an education. You can do this, blah, blah, blah. When he gets drafted 5th overall by Montreal. That's why he went play in the Canadian farm system and then the Canadians. But Riseborough would have been playing for the Gophers.
There you go. See? There you have it.
I tried to get Kenny Dryden. And I
remember that. We talked about that when he passed away. Yeah, you told that story.
There's a lot of guys that would have come here.
Sure, no doubt. One more question. Good variety of questions from the audience tonight. Dan, can you ask Louis his advice for parents with kids in youth hockey? So many super teams and clubs year-round. When to specialize in hockey, if ever? Gear, ice time, very expensive. What's the balance in all of it? Great to know, good perspective as someone who knows what it takes to be at a high level. We've talked about this before. What's your best speech to that texter?
Well, I'd have to say this: you could favor playing hockey and doing some extra training and learning in the summer, but play other sports. And I really mean that, because other sports really, there's a couple things that does. So we're taking hockey, but this could go for a football player just concentrating football or anything. You got to get away from the sport a bit to love it more, and so you don't get frustrated with it. You don't get sour on it. You don't get bored with it. And it's great to play a hockey player playing baseball. Hand-eye in baseball, trying to hit a baseball. The contact in football, the quickness in jumping and athletic ability in basketball. They all help you become a better athlete. And if you have the skill to play hockey, it's not going to hurt you to play other sports, and you're becoming a better athlete. And you're also getting a variety of stuff that takes away from any monotony that might set in or frustration when you're batting your head against the wall doing the same thing all the time. I really feel it's extremely important to play other sports. And years ago, you could remember, but many people won't. There was a television show called Superstars.
Yeah, sure.
And they used to have players from all sports come and compete in different events. In fact, I patented a story once, and I wish I would have done it, putting athletes in different situations and competing against the general public. The athletes were competing against themselves, against other athletes. And, hockey players always were first or second or third.
Is that right?
In other sports, yeah. And it's because they played other sports, too. Not
Right,
that
sure.
the others didn't.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for the love of the game to be as strong and as powerful as you want, to give the kids an opportunity to do other things so they don't get tired of it or monotonous or frustrated with it. And plus it makes them better athletes. So don't give up on and just specialize when a kid's 14, 15, 16. I always tell everybody, Gump Worsley never played goal till he was 14. Phil Esposito never made a junior A team till he was 19. You have time for the kid to develop. If he's got the skills to play hockey, those skills will come out. They'll come out. Maybe they'll be a little later coming out, at the level you want it to be, but not much later. And if he's got enough, he'll make it.
A 763 guy wants to know how much was ice time in the Sioux.
Oh my God! Well, it wasn't much because we played outside most of the time.
That's
like
true.
Phil said, he never skated inside till he was. I think Phil was 15 years old or something when he finally able to skate Memorial Gardens. I think we probably had to pay about 50 cents to go skating.
I was going to say it's probably
inside.
a bargain. Yeah, for sure. Have a wonderful night. Great stuff as always this week. We'll chat with you from where next week? Do we know yet?
Well, no, we got to probably do a different day. I'm on a plane coming back from Vancouver on Tuesday, so we got to do either Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
We'll figure something out. We'll be in touch with you early next week, if not before. Thanks, Luigi.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Appreciate you. Take care. That is Lou Nanne, brought to you by Kemp's. Great questions on a number of different subjects from the texters, which is very much appreciated. Because that's the beauty of Louis. There's pretty much nothing he can't answer and nothing he can't talk about, including his own observations on J.J. McCarthy. Everybody has an opinion on the Vikings quarterback. That is the nature of playing for the number one team in this town, and it's the nature of playing, of course, at the most important position for the number one team in town, whether they are winning or losing.
If you want to chime into what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, we can. It's easy. Just make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rate supply.
Sorry, KFAN. But you know what?
I almost don't know what to do with myself. We're so accustomed to being done by 6:15. The idea that we have to go all the way to 6:30 is almost... I feel like I need some load management right now. It's crazy. I think the rest of the week we're off early again, too. I'm not sure. But because the Wild play tomorrow night, correct? And that's a home game?
Correct. Yes.
Is that a regular time start or a later time start? I guess it'll depend on that.
Looks like a later time start.
Oh, so then we're not going to be out early tomorrow either.
Better get your stamina.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686 if you'd like to react to anything that we got into with Luigi. We had a lot of Vikings quarterback conversation early because he really, at this point, I don't know that you can necessarily get away from it. I do want to mention one thing we got into with Kevin Seifert, and if you listened then, I appreciate you listening to entire shows, but people kind of come and go. And, we complain, not me, of course, but other people complain incessantly about the need for certain rules to be changed in our favorite league, whatever it is, NHL, NFL, MLB, you name it. I know this is a sore subject because in this case it worked against the Purple's best chances to win the game against the Bears. But we've just had another vivid illustration of a rule change gone good, or a rule change that has resulted in exactly what the competition committee hoped it would bring back to the game. I'm old enough to remember long stretches when the kickoff return was an entertaining play, a real play. There was a viable threat that maybe you don't get a kickoff return for a touchdown, but maybe you get it back to the 50. Field position can be shifted, and it was a real football play that you didn't want to miss. And then obviously it reached a point where kickers' legs got so strong that they took all of that out of the game. Basically, I'm going to kick to the end zone. I'm going to kick beyond the end zone. I'm going to kick into the stands. That's how far I can kick the ball. And we reached a point where why even are we even bothering to kick off? So then the league says, well, what can we do to fix it? I told them a year ago what they needed to do, and they finally listened, and that was that that the penalty has to be great enough for kicking into the end zone that teams rethink it. And by that, in my view, you had to give the ball minimum to the receiving team's 35-yard line. The 25 wasn't going to be enough. The 30 wasn't going to be enough. But if you get it to the 35 and you say, go ahead, kick it as far as you want, man. We're happy for you that you got the big leg. But they're starting 65 yards from pay dirt and about 20 yards from a field goal. And that's what they finally did. And look at the impact, the powerful impact it had on last Sunday's game. 2 days ago at the People's Stadium. Because you know and I know, nursing a less than field goal lead, in other words, a field goal, you give up a field goal, you lose the game. Nursing that, I think, what was the score? We were up 17-16. So given that situation, you're going to kick the ball out. And if they're going to get the ball at the 20, 25-yard line, who cares? You'll take your chances on that. And the other way you could do it is you could squib it. But now you can't squib it because it's got to land in the landing zone or you will be similarly punished. So the Vikings did still have the choice. They could have kicked it deep. And I know there's some people out there who think they should have. I don't agree. But the rule change made this a tougher call. And it then made more likely exactly the scenario that got played out. And again, from the Vikings fan standpoint, it was a disaster, but it's an exciting play. From the Bears fan standpoint, incredibly exciting play. Ball gets back past midfield or around there. They get a few runs, and suddenly they're in position for the game-winning field goal. So it's like a textbook example of how a successful rule change can indeed bring back a once vital part of the game into the game in a way that it had just been flat out eliminated. It just had not existed in the last several years. It was the most meaningless play in football. And for a lot of people, it was, I got extra time to go to the bathroom. I got extra time to grab the nachos or whatever the case may be. I don't want to look at it. There's nothing to see here, so why bother? But that rule change caused the chain of events that ultimately led, in this case, to the Vikings losing the game. But it did lead to an exciting play, whether you're on the good side of that or the bad side of it. So often, even best case, best intentions don't work out in terms of bringing back a long forgotten part of the game. Because we got that funny formation now, right? Where it looks like you got only the kicker at the kicking line and you got everybody else further up and they got to wait a while and it looks so bizarre, but it's leading to results. More kickoff returns, some deep, some, touchdowns. Most times it's still going to be, you're probably going to be, if you decide to run it out, you're going to end up between the 20 and the 30-yard line, but it's a play again. It's a play you have to pay attention to again. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, I know you're a great kickoff mind. Don't you agree?
I think it's made it more. I mean, they got what they wanted out of it.
Exactly.
They wanted more returns,
yes,
and more meaningful plays. Now, obviously, Vikings fans are waking up. This week are going to say, "Why don't you just kick it out and we'll just take it to 35 and we'll play from there and trust our defense." But they got exactly. It's rare that a rule change gets exactly. There's no other ramifications and side consequences of it. They got exactly what they were looking for, and it worked.
A couple texts. Well, I'll tell you what. We still got one more. Not done yet. 6:15, right? So let's take one more break. A lot of texts have come in to finish up with. We'll do that, and we will remind you what we have coming up on tomorrow's broadcast as well, and review what's been a pretty, I think, productive show to this point. Don't go away.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
And it's brought to you by American Pressure.
We had Chris Carter on yesterday, and he was pretty honest, although I thought very fair in discussing the performance of one J.J. McCarthy. I missed this. Did you see this? That, well, part of the reason I wanted Carter on was he had responded, your guy, what's the name? Let me double check it to be sure. Emmanuel Acho had filmed, the former NFL linebacker and media analyst, a film clip on Sunday night that highlighted the McCarthy go-ahead touchdown pass to Addison. And Acho praised that play, acknowledged he hadn't been as good up until then, but then said McCarthy got that clutch gene. Carter then, via X, pushed back with, in classic Chris Carter form, did you watch the first 59 minutes? And that's part of what got Chris Carter back in my head. I said, we got to have him on. And so we talked about, and again, I think he was hard on McCarthy. He was concerned by what he saw, but he didn't say you give up on him. He did not say it's over. There's no way that we've already seen enough to know that we can put him on ice. He's not going to be the guy. But I'm seeing that a guy who was a longtime quarterback coach of McCarthy, I think Holcomb his name is, responded with kind of an obscenity, referring to Chris Carter as a bleeping clown. So this is getting pretty juicy. I think he responded. I didn't know that when we had Carter on yesterday. I certainly would have gotten Carter's reaction to it. But what this underscores to me is the level of tension right now in the organization, in this case, outside the organization as well, because there are such great expectations, and there is, I guess you could say so far, so much to be worried about that nerves are frayed, I think is the best way to put it. So we'll see where that goes from there. Is it a little tough for a former player to come back with that rejoinder? Well, as a snarky guy myself, I think it's actually a pretty good line. And there is no way you come out of that game just making it about how he finished. It has to be about the entire performance for sure. And that's part of the reason we like having Carter on. He's going to be honest, even if it is his team. I'll say again, though, Carter with us didn't make it sound like he was giving up on it. Just said there were some concerning things that he saw that were giving him pause. I'm not sure the right approach. I'm not sure you're helping your own player when you respond that defensively, because the truth of the matter is there's no arguing with what had come before. I mean, it's not even up for debate. It's not like CC is projecting how he might play. It's how he played by any objective standard. So What it might mean is that there's a lot of nervousness and a lot of defensiveness because they damn well know that this is not gone. And anybody who's worked with J.J. McCarthy deep down has to know this has not gone close to how they expected that it was going to go. This message is to Dan B. I'm almost as old as Dan. I know he grew up a Bears fan. I'm wondering if J.J. reminds him of Bobby Douglas. They both throw 100 miles per hour with great inaccuracy. God, the Vikings better hope not. Bobby Douglas was a big, strapping lad, much more physical than McCarthy, a brute of a runner. In fact, Bobby Douglas, I believe, was the first running back to ever rush for 1,000 yards in a season, if I'm not mistaken. But he did not have the, shall we say, football intellect to play the position at the professional level. He was wildly inaccurate. I'm not ready to go to the Bobby Douglas comparison yet. I think it's a little early to do that. That might be a little bit on the rough side. And the last thing I want to have happen to me is to have one of JJ's old quarterback coaches refer to me as a bleeping clown. So I will defer, and I won't go quite that far, even though there was great concern. And I've told this story before. The great irony regarding the Bobby Douglas career as a left-handed quarterback for the Bears in the late 60s into the early 70s is that his greatest game, I mean, it may have been the one game where start to finish, he looked like a professional, franchisee NFL quarterback. No one remembered it, even at the time, because during that same game, a receiver for the Detroit Lions, the opponent, Chuck Hughes, died on the field. Collapsed and died on the field. So even at his crowning achievement moment, who's going to remember when in that same game another player actually died from, not in that case, injuries. I think he had, I want to say, Chuck Hughes was the name of the receiver. I think he had a heart condition. Ultimately, I think they found out he had a heart condition, but it was awful. I remember it like yesterday, that whole story. So I'm not ready to go to the Bobby Douglas card quite yet. How many times did PJ say the Gophers are a really good football team today during the coaches show? Sure, he went with it. I know he said they were at a disadvantage when the team is so young and using that old excuse again, Ed and St. Paul. I did not hear PJ today. Did you? Did he go really good football team again today, or was he just projecting because he has done that before?
I caught maybe a couple minutes. The one quote that stuck out to me was, "We're bowl eligible, and that's a big deal."
Yeah.
So there's that.
You're not a really good football team if you get outscored by 100 points or more than 100 points on the road in your 4 road games. The closest you've played on the road was losing 2 touchdowns to Cal, and you've gotten blown out by Ohio State, Iowa, and for all practical purposes, the University of Oregon as well. So we can, and again, here's the other kicker. I know the object of the game is to win, but if in the games where you're playing winless Big Ten teams, you have to, like, when you eke out victories, you're not dominating those teams. Come on, man. I mean, we all have eyes. And I don't expect, PJ to say we stink. I get that. That's not what coaches generally are going to do. But it's a bit on the insulting side to keep going down that road. And it's not, my opinion won't change on the basis of going to Northwestern and winning, actually Wrigley Field and winning, and then hosting Wisconsin and winning that game too. No, that's not going to make me feel, because I know that gets us, I think, to 8. And then we're happy for you. But no, it's not going to change a thing as far as I'm concerned. Thank you to Kevin Seifert, who joined about 4:15, and also Louie at 5:30. So the plan tomorrow, as far as I know now, would be Mason studio and Pat Kessler in studio, Wednesday regulars. I may be working on a couple of other ideas. Oh, forgot to mention Tom Crean, I mentioned earlier, is scheduled to join us by phone at about 3:15 for a little NBA conversation as well. So a pretty packed program tomorrow. Thank you for your participation today. Vikings Uncensored? No, what's coming up next?
Vikings Country.
Vikings Country. Do we know the guest?
One way to find out.
There's only one way. That's the most excellent of all the teases. Talk to you tomorrow. Don't forget, send me your Snownami stories, how you survived The first tsunami of the year today.